So, hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Live Calm with Andy. Today we're going to be having a quick talk about how you can introduce some very important factors into your mindful practice and how to transform that into your everyday life. What is the purpose of mindfulness? The purpose of mindfulness is essentially, I think to all of us, if we think about it deep down, is to try and reduce the frequency of our worries and our day-to-day life stresses, and it's essentially to try and live in the now, live in that now, and to be happy more often, more frequently. And there's something to be said that the more we do that, the more we train ourselves to live in the now, not to worry as much, be happy, because it's our default baseline state essentially. Now, there's a quote here that I'm going to read word for word essentially, which is from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. If you've seen any of my previous videos, they are a little bit longer, so I would encourage you to only sit and try and digest those when you've got a little bit more time. But essentially they are full of good stuff. They just, you need to set a bit of time aside and you need to focus on them. And the quote that I'm going to read to you is essentially, in a nutshell, what mindful practice is all about. So essentially the fundamentals of practicing mindfulness are about having some kind of mindfulness practice that you do regularly, physically, that you can do that in various forms. Meditation is one of the most common ones, and it's what I'm going to focus on today. But finding whatever form of that you enjoy, whether it is meditation, whether you like to, do it through dancing to music, whether you like to do it through, I know lots of people say that they like to bake at the weekends, and it's, the physical action of kneading the dough and all the rest of it. It's all the same thing. If you can find the action in it that is mindful, then you're essentially doing the act. But the quote that I'm going to read here is from Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. If you've not read it, I would highly encourage you to go and do so. It's a fantastic book. And what it says about the mind and mindful practice is, if something comes into your mind, let it come in and let it go out. It will not stay long. When you try and stop your mind thinking, it means that you are bothered by it. And there's actually, that is, I think, something quite profound to think about, which is that, a lot of us, when we are struggling to remain mindful, or when we're looking for mindfulness and we're really searching for it, it's because we are exhausted. We are physically exhausted, we are mentally exhausted, and we're at our wit's end. And what we are looking for is the magic sort of cure-all bullet that's going to stop that. And I think the interesting thing from this is that, when you try and stop the thinking, it's because you're bothered by it. And, that is essentially, it's rumination by any other word. You're having all of these interrupting thoughts of whatever nature they are for you, and you are going, God, I just need this to stop. When will it stop? And it's adding to it. And so the purpose of mindfulness meditation is to try and dampen all of this down, to reduce the worry, the future thoughts, the embarrassment and shame and thoughts of the past, and just to live in the present moment, in the right now, which is what mindfulness is all about. And so in the second part of this video, we are going to go on and have a little bit of a look at about specifically meditative practices. I want to give you all an action point to take away, but for the purpose of mindfulness, and to wrap up this section, the whole purpose of mindfulness, and this is the only thought you should have in your head about mindfulness as you're doing it, is basically to reduce down the amount of times you're having thought. And the purpose of doing that is that as you learn to do it, and as you get better at doing it, you will be able to learn to interact on your own terms with your mind, rather than it running away all day with thoughts and worries, or being overly busy and stimulated at times when we're already over busy and stimulated because of things like work commitments. You actually can just choose to engage with it entirely in your own way. And that's a real thing. People find when they do mindfulness that at the point when they do it, it's fantastic because they feel all relaxed, they feel calm. People who go to yoga classes will say the same thing. At the end of doing yoga, some light stretching, not thinking, they feel amazing. And then they go right back to their everyday lives, and it's busy and it's hectic, and they go, if only I could be at yoga class right now. Well, you can't always be at yoga class, but at the very least you can learn how to make it feel like you're at yoga class, and when you need to be more productive and you can't just be sitting thinking and breathing, or sitting and making your dough, or sitting and painting or whatever it is, at least you can engage with that on your own terms rather than having a runaway train. So that's what we'll go on to look at, how-to methods, in the second part of this video. So, how to practice mindfulness, not just for every day, but for right now, how to practice mindfulness. As I've said, there's lots of methods of doing this, so please, what I would rather you did is, rather than take away what I'm recommending for you to do, is listen to what I'm recommending to do, and if you can think of a better way of trying it, or something that's going to force you to do it, please do. And the reason I say this is, essentially, what I've found is I find the actual meditative part of this to be easy and fun and relaxing for me, and so I do it. If you're the kind of person who's not going to find that easy, fun or relaxing, but you think, do you know what, I have a similar experience when I'm swimming. I swim twice a week, and every time I'm in the pool, I have a very similar experience. I'm just going with the flow of, stroke, stroke, stroke. Take the principle and focus on doing it mindfully, because you can find lots of things you enjoy doing and choose to do them mindfully. All that I'm giving you here is the sort of the focus part to allow you to do that. And then once you've got that, you can then look to, essentially monitor yourself and try and, during the course of a day, to go, my mind is too full, my mind is too busy, and it will allow you to then dial it back down, because you can quickly choose to do a practice that you find meditative, be it breathing, be it, just engaging in your work practice, whatever you do for work. Try and find a way of doing that mindfully when you find yourself getting a bit busy. You can do it for a couple of minutes without, overly thinking, and get yourself back into the rhythm and the flow of it. And that will be fantastic. So, the meditative practice I'm going to suggest for you is mindful meditation, or as it's known in the Zen practice of Buddhism, it's known as Zazen, which is essentially sitting and focusing on the breath. More specifically, they recommend that you count the breaths. So for those of you who want to do it in this format, what I would suggest, first of all, is to do it with some sort of guided meditation video. It's not compulsory. You can do it the old-fashioned way, and to be honest with you, once you've done it a little bit, I recommend you do it the old-fashioned way by actually just counting your breaths, or saying mentally in your head, breathe in, breathe out, and then working on just focusing on the breathing in, breathing out. But the first few times I would recommend doing it with someone guiding you along, because it is easy for the mind to wander off. So what does the how-to manual say about meditation? Essentially, fundamentally, what you are wanting to do is sit, and you'll notice there I purposefully went back towards my position here. So essentially, you're wanting to sit back, you're wanting your shoulders wide, you're wanting your head relaxed, your neck nice and relaxed, and you are wanting to, if possible, not fully close your eyes, but just half close them and go down, or if you prefer, you can also fully close them. Your legs, I know you can't see my legs here, but essentially they do say that strictly you should be sitting down either in a position where you're sitting on top of your legs, so think, samurai warrior sitting on the floor in a temple, one hand on his sword over here, like that, or legs folded over into the lotus position. I wouldn't worry too much about the legs. It's recommended in Zen practice you do that. I personally, I've got an old sports injury in one of my ankles that means I find sitting in either of those positions for too long deeply uncomfortable, and so I will just sit normally in a chair or on the end of my bed, or I will sit on the floor but just with my legs straight out. Do whatever's comfortable for you. And then, and this is the key thing to do, set a timer for the first time you do it, a couple of minutes. For those of you who are a little bit more read on these kind of things, you may be aware that in sort of Zen monasteries and in Buddhist monasteries in general, they use incense sticks. So they will basically burn an incense stick and they will try and meditate for the full time that the incense stick is burning down. That's a long time. First time you do it, set it for 2 minutes. If you manage 2 minutes, okay, and you think, well, that wasn't very much of anything, go up to 3, 4, 5 minutes. I wouldn't really say, unless you are keen on becoming a head monk in a monastery somewhere in Tibet, you don't really need to do it for maybe longer than 5-10 minutes at a time. If you want to do it for longer than that, and that there's definitely benefits to being able to do it for half an hour, but that's a lot of time commitment. Feel free, but I'd say work up to doing 5 minutes, and once you've reached that point, you fairly well, trust me, the first time you do it for 5 minutes, you'll be going, is this not over yet? Jesus, this feels like forever. And that's the point. And so when you're doing that, essentially what you need to do is just be focusing on your breath. So you're in your good position. I'll go back here and demonstrate that once again. Eyes closed, and you're breathing in, breathing out. And you also can't see, but my tummy is what's moving, not my chest. I'm not going, because that's not what we're looking to do. We're looking for the chest to remain broad. We're looking for the head to remain up and dipped slightly, and the eyes either half open or shut. They do recommend you should try and have either a neutral expression or a smile on your face as you do it. And you're looking for the belly to move. They often say that when you're in that position and you're doing your breathing, you should try and feel like a mountain. You're sitting firm like a mountain in that position. You're not moving, you're not fidgeting, you're not getting uncomfortable, you're just allowing it to happen. And then you will breathe in and you will breathe out. And as you do that, you are basically trying your best not to be interrupted by a thought. If a thought does arise, you are to, if you're counting at this point, you go back to 1. So say you've gone 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, thought. You'd go back to 1. And you've not to be annoyed by it. You've not to then think, oh, damn, I've failed. You just go back to 1, and there's no judgment about it. You just allow it to happen. It's for that reason I don't really like counting, because it points out to your brain the fact that you've gone back to 1 because you have not managed your task of not thinking. What I prefer to do is basically every time I have a thought, I can't remember where I saw this first, and I'd love to be able to say thank you to whoever that was, but essentially just every time you have a thought come into your head, just think thought. So you have a thought, I need to take the bins out. You go thought, and just continue breathing as you do that thought, and it comes and goes. And you'll find at first that your brain is very busy, and as you get better at it, your brain will become less busy each time you do it, and to the point where now when I do it, I can regularly go 5 or 10 minutes and have no interrupting thoughts whatsoever. In Zen mind, the beginner's mind, again, which is another plug for the book. I don't get paid for any of these plugs for the books. I wish I got paid for plugs for anything. Basically, in the book, what they describe it as, and I think it's a really good visual metaphor to have, and again, rather than saying thought in your head, you could imagine this, is that each thought is kind of like a ripple appearing on the water. So if you imagine perfectly smooth glass top of water, and someone comes along and pokes it with a finger or with a stick or dips a toe into a pool of water, the ripples all come out in perfect concentric circles. And at the start, there's lots and lots of these circles because the water's been hugely agitated, and slowly as it calms down, the gaps get bigger and bigger and bigger in between them. And eventually, if you leave it long enough, it will go back to complete flat calm. And so that's what you're trying to do. And if you imagine that each time a thought comes in, you've started with a ripple, and then there's a ripple and a ripple over here and a ripple over there, it all gets busy, and you want to get the whole thing back to smooth. And so that's maybe your visualization, is just, imagining each thought as a new ripple arriving in your head, and you're wanting to get to the point where everything's smooth and calm. And as I say, that is essentially the long and short of what you're looking to do. You're looking to have very few interruptions of thought. When you're doing it meditatively, like I'm suggesting, you have no other thing going on. Your body's still, your mind's still, everything's still. If you're looking to do it via one of the other means, so when you're swimming and you're not really thinking about anything, you're baking bread, you're sewing, you're doing any of these things you enjoy, it's okay to be doing the action, sewing, swimming, all of these things. It's okay to be doing these things, but try and focus on something that's rhythmical, cyclical, over and over again. So maybe, if you're swimming and you're doing the front crawl, it might be, right, left, breathe. If you're sewing, it might be, needle in, needle out, needle in, needle out, and try and make it something that just repeats over and over again, essentially. And that's to be your only thought, not about, I wonder what happened with X, Y, or Z. And, that is then the ripple effect. And essentially what we're looking to do with this is, meditating or being mindful in this fashion is fantastic, but we are looking for that then to transfer over into our days. So when we're sitting at a desk at work, if we work in a coffee shop and we are, making lots of coffees very quickly, if we work in a supermarket and on a checkout and we are, scanning items very, very quickly, the sort of the meditative elements of that are essentially to be doing those things and not thinking. So you want to be thinking, when you're scanning, maybe just say beep each time you beep something, beep, beep, beep. Not out loud, you can do, but people will look at you, but maybe just in your head, just beep. And try and get in the flow of it and not be interrupted by thought. And that's essentially what we're looking to do. And so this brings us on to my final point, which is essentially there is no perfect practice. You can try as hard as you like to reach perfect mindfulness, to never have interrupting thoughts at all, to try to, achieve perfect mindfulness and to be unshakable, and to never ever have moments where you're overwhelmed by, my God, I've got this, I've got that, it's all too much, I can't do all of this at the one time. You can try and reach for that, but you will never get there. And you will never ever meditate perfectly. You will never ever, swim mindfully perfectly. You will never sew mindfully perfectly. We live in an imperfect world. We are imperfect beings. And what's really important, and I kind of touched on this before, is that essentially when you are doing these things and you don't quite manage to do it, the important thing is that you don't start beating yourself up about not being able to do it perfectly, because as the quote says down here, when you try to stop your thinking, it means you're bothered by it. Equally, when you start to get annoyed with yourself because you're not able to calm yourself down, it means that you're annoyed by it. And by being annoyed with it, you're adding to the aggravation, you're adding to the extra thoughts with, why can I not even do this properly? Why can't I get myself relaxed and calm? Why can't I focus on just swimming? So really, there is no perfect practice. You're never ever going to do this to the point where never again is your brain, doing things that you're not actively in control of. Your brain is always going to interrupt with thoughts and worries, and it feels, and this is one of the things you learn by doing this, and this is the real sort of purpose of it, I think, is you learn that actually quite a lot of the thoughts in your head, and as far as I remember, psychology refers to them as automatic thoughts. Quite a lot of the thoughts in your head are not actually you thinking about it. It's not your sort of front bit of your brain, the logical bit that sits and thinks about, if I do this, then that will happen, all that kind of stuff. It's essentially a deeper bit of your brain throwing out thoughts. So there's bits of your brain deeper down that are designed to try and test out worrying thoughts to see if any of them stick. So some of these thoughts that are, have I got enough money to buy food next week before I get paid again? Is the cat's claws going to need trimmed at the vets again? I don't really have time to do that right now. Is my car going to need serviced again before the end of the year? All these kind of things, these little thoughts you have, and you can become quite profoundly worried by them because you keep going, and I keep worrying about this and I keep worrying about that. And if you meditate often enough or do any other form of mindfulness often enough, what you discover is the first time these things pop into your head, it's not actually you that's actively thinking about that. It's this deeper bit of the brain, and it throws the idea out. And the problem is, when you're not practicing mindfulness and you're not practicing meditative practices or any of these other good things regularly, you don't notice the first time that it's not you worrying about it. You don't let the thought come in and go, there's another one of those thoughts popping up again, and let it go. You are interacting with it going, well, damn it, that's a very good point. I should be thinking more about that. I should be more worried about that. And the problem, if you do that, is it goes, this worked really well. I threw out a thought that was worrying. I'm going to throw out more and more and more and more and more. And you speed up and you see how that goes. So anyway, that is all that I really had to say today. Hopefully I managed to keep this video a little bit shorter than the other ones. I am going to try, obviously, and work on getting them down closer to 10 minutes, 15 minutes if possible. But thank you very much for watching this today. If you could, please like, comment and subscribe on this video in any way that you feel you want to. It will help me to sort of further spread my message and my sort of tips and tricks about how to manage and watch mental health. It's something that's very important to me, and I want to spread awareness and help as many people as I can. So any way that you interact with this video does help me to do so. Thank you very much for listening to all of this, and I hope that you have a very calm rest of your day.